Welcome back to the Startup Show. I'm John Biggs. Today on the show, we have Mark McQuade from Arcee AI, a brand new AI startup, one of many. But why don't you tell us what you guys are working on?
Yeah, hey, great to be here. At RC, we're focused on heavily on smaller specialized language models. The focal point for everything we do, albeit around smaller specialized models, is also uh, delivering value with Gen AI. I think that's something that gets a little murky in today's day and age through all the hype. Is trying to generate true value for real businesses and real ROI through the utilization of smaller specialized language models. It comes with a variety of benefits when you use smaller models, being more cost efficient, effective. We also preach the ability to own the model, so you're not hitting public API, full control of your data, of your queries. Yeah, and I mean we heavily focus on really getting value, allowing enterprises, specifically enterprises, to really pull value from these smaller models. In the same way they would be able to pull value from an OpenAI ChatGPT or a Claude Sonnet 3.5 at a much more cost-effective clip.
So,
Uh,
yeah, tell me a little bit about these. So these are these local models? Or are you running? Are they able to run them on their own hardware? Are they reduced models? What are you guys doing there?
Yeah, so we have the ability to do both. So we can host them for you in a SaaS, in a true hosted environment that's our cloud, or you can run them in your own cloud or on premise on your own hardware. So we have that kind of multiple deployment targets. The way we make them small are there's a couple of pieces to that. So we have the ability to distill down larger models into smaller models. Something we did recently with a model called Supernova, where we have a library called Distill Kit, and we were able to distill Llama 405B down to
Hmm.
70 billion parameters.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so we can, or we literally can just start with a smaller model as well and just make it better. So Llama 3.3, 8 billion, or any of the Quen models. We have a very good post-training pipeline that we can take those models as is and just make them better.
And what does it mean to make them better in so each you have different clients, right? So maybe you have an automotive client or a mobility client. Maybe you have a, I don't know, somebody who needs to supervise a chat room or something like that. Do you have specific tools that allow you to reduce the model down to just the fact that just the information that you need to do that task?
Yeah, so it's not quite as simple as that. So what we'll
Hmm.
do typically is say we'll work with a customer. They have a bunch of data, some kind of private proprietary data. We will then use that data and run the model with that data through our post-training pipeline and post-training APIs, which uses a variety of techniques from model merging with merge kit, distillation with distill kit, supervised fine tuning, DPO, reward modeling. It's a pretty in-depth post-training pipeline. And the result of that is now a model that is really tasks focused to their use case based on their data. So we don't actually kill the model's greatness that already exists in it. We just boost its ability to know your data and your nuances and your context.
When am I going to, if I'm doing a startup, when am I going to need something like what you have to offer versus just chat GPTing it or just hitting some API somewhere?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get that often. So there's a couple pieces to that. So the reason you would come to us as opposed to a ChatGPT or a Claude Sonnet is if you're hitting it at scale. Those can get very expensive if you're hitting them at scale. Whereas if you're running a much smaller model, especially locally, whether it's in our cloud, which is a fraction of the price of those models from a token perspective, or in your own cloud where you're only paying for the compute that you want to run it on, which is a much smaller compute instance, or there's also the ownership factor. So as a startup, there's something to be said about owning your model as an asset, as opposed to hitting something else that's owned by someone else. So we've had a lot of startups come to us and say, yeah, we really just want to use you all because we need ownership of that model. As we go to market and we go to investors to pitch, we need that ownership as our own asset.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually an interesting point. So one of the biggest things is defensibility in a start in an AI startup. You don't have a moat, right? If I'm connecting to whichever API, anybody feasibly could do what I'm kind of doing because most of the power is in the back end. Um, should I, as a entrepreneur be thinking about that immediately to become more defensible?
Yes, in my opinion, yes, because I've actually been through this, kind of VC dog and pony show
Hmm.
myself for the last 2 years. If you're looking at raising capital and getting venture backing, you're gonna need to be more than just wrapping OpenAI
Yep.
for the most part. I mean, some people get away with it pretty well, but for the most part, what they're looking for is a very unique and differentiated offering, product, application. So, just as you said, just hitting ChatGPT with some kind of wrapper around it is probably not going to get the venture world excited about you.
So there's been a lot of talk about this, and I read this yesterday. I think it was somebody was talking about how there's I don't think there's 80 uh, AI companies floating around the valley right now, and none of them are getting funding.
Mhm.
Um, what is what's the next big thing? What should people be focusing on if they want to survive? Essentially.
Yeah, this is a. I'll give you an answer that probably isn't the most common answer, where
Hmm.
where you might get a lot of answers about, well, this cool tech is coming up. You should be focusing on agents, or you should be
Yep.
focusing on the autonomous ability for models to do things, and you'll set yourself apart from the other startups. No, it's revenue. You
Hmm.
need to focus on revenue. You need to focus on a real business. There's enough companies out there that have great tech, and they have a singular narrow focus on building great tech and no idea how to sell it or go to market. If you can't sell something, you might be okay getting off the ground. Maybe you get a small seed round or something, maybe a big seed round, depending how cool your tech is. But if you can't crack revenue, then you're never going to sustain or last. I think that's a big shift in the valley right now. Is that everyone's looking for obviously cool tech, but they're looking for a roadmap to 10 million ARR, 50 million ARR, 100 million ARR, which is a much more difficult challenge to solve in the AI space than traditional other tech verticals.
Did we fall into this because of the previous VC climate where everything had to be buttoned up, everything had to be revenue. You really couldn't just raise on a pie in the sky kind of idea. Or is this specific to AI?
I think that there's a shift mainly towards what you first mentioned. AI kind of moved away from that traditional venture capital, SaaS metrics. They moved
Hmm.
away from revenue, users, and things like that. And I'm sure you've seen and everyone's seen. There's companies getting astronomical, amount of capital on nothing, on an idea or
Yep.
pre-product. I think that as we look, 18 months removed from that, maybe 2 years removed from that. Mind you, there's still companies doing that. So, but I'll just say it's no longer the norm. Um, you're seeing that maybe those big bets aren't paying off because it is much more difficult to figure out how to generate revenue. So, I think that when you have, I think it's just kind of steering back to the norm. It's not fully in line with, like a data analytics tool or anything like that from a metrics perspective, but it's definitely steering more towards actually figuring out a true business model, much more than it ever was, say, 18, 24 months ago, or even back to 2021.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So that's not a hangover. This is just sort of a. But do you think it's possible to raise on, say, somebody uses RC and captures their own specific type of model that they need to use? You think there's still room to raise in the world when it comes to that sort of thing?
Yeah, I still think there is the room to raise on, being differentiated, having unique tech, and having great ideas and a great technical team. I think there's still absolutely room to raise there. I don't know how much room there is to raise repeatedly on
Hmm.
that until you figure out the unlock of a revenue and a business model.
Who among your clients have you seen that are doing some cool stuff?
We've got a few customers. I shouldn't say names just in case. That's
Sure.
okay. We have a couple customers that are working. We play heavily in the enterprise now. We've kind of shifted majorly towards enterprise. We have some companies that are working with us on like a large insurance company that's working with us on, they built their own claims model, claims processing model. A lot of customer support use cases. As you can imagine, customer support crosses every vertical, whether it be finance, healthcare. We're working with some large organizations that are building LLMs that are trained heavily on their internal knowledge bases for external customer support. We also have some pretty cool niche use cases. We have a customer of ours that's utilizing a model we trained as a replacement of a career coach, at least
Hmm.
initially up front.
Hmm.
So no longer talking to a human up front, you're talking to an LLM, which will give career advice and talk about what career field you should get into and what role and such based on a large amount of data that the model was trained on. I think though, as funny as it is to say, I think those are more 2024 use cases. As we shift to 2025, it's less about chatbots and more about task completion. It's that agent world, the agentic world of going out and completing tasks. And I think that is really the next big wave. It's like we're no longer satisfied with telling me to do something. It's now go and do it.
So that's an interesting point. Everybody's talking about these agents. Is there a point in the near future when we can replace an entire HR team with agents?
Yes, I believe so. I believe I believe to an extent. I think you'll still need some human in the loop.
Hmm.
I think you can, greatly reduce. Even today, I think you could probably reduce. Let's use an HR department as an example. Um, Manual effort about 40 to 50% if you build out, appropriate agents and agentic workflows to complete tasks. I think in about 12 months, when you can have long running autonomous agents that are going off on their own, completing complex tasks, only checking in for clarifying, what they need clarified. And then they're just, say running these processes for hours, weeks, even months, which is a pretty big challenge at today. I think once we get there, yes, then you could potentially completely replace departments. Well, I wouldn't say replace. I would say augment them,
Hmm.
because I hate to be saying that we're just replacing
Yeah,
humans.
yeah, yeah.
But
That's the well,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
at some point somebody's going to say it, which is I think is the jackpot moment for humanity.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much. The models just aren't there that for a lot of enterprise use cases, to be honest, because of hallucinations.
Hmm.
And a lot of enterprises can't afford to have hallucinations within any queries. So, I mean, you can look at it this way: if you're an enterprise and you're chatting with a chatbot and it hallucinates, okay, that's bad. If you're actually taking it and extending it to an
Yep.
agent that's going to complete a task and it hallucinates at that, that's much worse.
Hmm.
So as we get more complex with our Gen AI capabilities into the agent world, the hallucinations need to decrease greatly as well, because the more and more complexity we evolve, the less and less we can afford to get it wrong.
At what point do we get to AGI? Do you think?
Never, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not a. I mean, AGI is such a loaded term, in my
Yeah. Yeah.
opinion. It's just such a loaded term. But when we get to a point of that, what people perceive as AGI, I think it's probably a long way out. I think we're still just scratching the surface of what can be done from within large language models, generative AI as a whole. I think we're still figuring out very much how to turn very cool tech and very transformative tech into value.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think iteratively over time we'll get closer and closer. I don't know about the true grab for AGI though.
Yeah. AGI
It's a
definition there is artificial general intelligence. I forgot to
Yep,
I jumped with
the acronym.
the acronym. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I was speaking recently with some folks who kind of imagined a world where a VC would walk into a room and there would be a founder and like four agents. This is the marketing agent. This is the coding agent. This is the front end, back end, that kind of thing. I wonder how feasible that is, simply because you're sitting in front of these models all day. What's your view
Mhm.
on that?
I mean, you could do that now to an extent. Like we're building a product called Arcee Orchestra. It'll be launched within the next couple of weeks, which is it's a collection of SLMs working in a mixture of models, but we're extending it out for agent workflows. So you could build an HR agent, and you could build a marketing agent and a sales agent. So you can do that today. You do require human in the loop, right? Whether it be someone to create the workflows and the agentic processes of what you want to complete, what tasks you want to complete, or it may be to the point where you need to, have check-ins with the agent to ensure it's on the right track, to provide any additional information, things like that. So I'd say we're far off that and not far off that. Meaning you
Hmm.
can do it today, but you can't do it in the world that people envision of like I just have an agent that's able to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
go off and do everything, and then no humans ever need it.
What's next for Arcee? What are you guys working on this year?
So RC Orchestra is our big launch, which is coming out end of January. Which is, as I said, we're moving away from the model layer solely, and especially custom model training, and moving now into the agentic system, the end-to-end agentic system world, where you're able to, quantifiably reduce manual effort. Oh, customer support, we can save you 30% the time, and things like that. I think that's the true unlock. What needs to happen in generative AI now is you need to work backwards from the value and showcase how companies, departments can actually, get that ROI back using models, and then it will really be a snowball effect. But so that's very big for us. We're also doing a lot of cool things on our research side. We're developing our own model architecture right now. We predominantly have taken llama models or Quen models or Mistral models and made them better. We're now extending ourselves into building our own RC architecture, which will be very good for us, specifically focused on smaller models, maybe built for mobile or edge devices. So that's something that's very important to us. And we're just doing a lot of things in the transformative on the tech side as well, from model merging with MergeKit. We're going to be extending MergeKit out with a new release, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, model merging is fusing multiple models together into one, reducing the need to train, and just other things within distillation. DeepSeek released their 670 billion parameter model, I believe it was last week, which ironically enough cost them $5 million to train, which is crazy. That's
Hmm.
great compared to what others have spent to train. And we're distilling that down. So we're going to take that 670 billion parameter model and make it much, much smaller, which will be much easier for people to actually utilize, because 670 billion parameters is massive and very expensive. So, yeah.
What do you get with the 670 versus the 7 gig or
Well,
7 billion?
yeah, if we're able to, let's just say for argument's sake, we're able to distill down 670 to 100 billion. So you're reducing the size of the model.
Hmm.
So although, what you're trying to do is when you reduce it, also keep its performance in par with that 670 billion parameter model. But now you have the ability, let's use 70, bring it from 670 to 70. Now, if it's 70 billion parameters, you now have the ability to run it on a small GPU.
Hmm.
Whereas if you have a 670, you need to run that on a large GPU, like a H200 or something. And so it just reduces the cost in order of magnitude. And if you're not decreasing the ability and the performance of the model too much, it's like, why not? Why would you spend 500K a year over 50K a year if the incremental gains aren't that much on the large one?
Hmm. Okay,
Yep.
very cool.
Yep.
All right, so the website is arcee.ai. So check that out if you're interested in your own models. Thank you, Mark. This has been really enlightening.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me on.
All right. This has been the Startup Show. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next episode.